Hello and welcome to my long overdue review of The Rings of Power. I am a little nervous for this because I know a lot of people loved the show, I know a lot of people hated it, and I definitely really enjoyed it, but I'm not really on either side. So if you hated it, then this might not be the video for you, and if you absolutely loved it, then this also might not be the video for you. As you can see today, I am in a new filming setup. We've been rearranging and decorating our apartment a little bit, so now I have all my posters and my Tariel daggers that I had for my cosplay up on the wall, and I think I really like this setup. I think it's a lot more comfortable than sitting on the floor in front of my bookshelf, although I think I will still film there sometimes, but I think this is my preferred filming setup. So let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Let's just start off with my overall opinion of The Rings of Power. I would give the show a solid 7.5 out of 10. Did it quite hit the mark for me? Not quite. There were a couple episodes that really kind of missed the mark for me, but was it the worst thing I've ever seen? Absolutely not. It was really good. It definitely struggled a little bit in certain areas, but I am going to be talking a little more in depth about that. In terms of pacing, it definitely struggled, and also with the amount of plots it was trying to juggle. But let's start off with my most important thing, and that is the music. Now for me, if the music is not right, then the whole thing is garbage. And that's because, one, I am autistic and I am very musically inclined, and music is a huge part of my life, particularly the Lord of the Rings music. It has been my safe place in dark times. So for me, going into this show, I was really worried that the music was not going to live up to Howard Shore's incredible masterpieces from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. Luckily, the composer Bear McCreary blew this out of the water. I was truly blown away. Music is such an integral part of Tolkien that if you don't get the music right, then you're really missing a big part. Luckily, again, that was not the case. And what I really loved about Bear McCreary's composing is that you can hear nods to the original scores that Howard Shore composed in his music. If you listen closely, there are certain themes and motifs that kind of shine through that you go, I recognize that. This particularly came into play with Where the Shadows Lie, which is sung by Fiona Apple and was the song for the finale. And this song definitely has nods to the One Ring theme and also Gollum's song, the credit song from The Two Towers. Sonically, it had moments where it really sounded similar, not a copy, but in the same family. Another track that absolutely stood out to me was A Plea to the Rocks. That was truly incredible. That is the song where Disa is singing, and when I was watching that particular episode and when that song came on, I had absolute chills. Incredible. The actress who plays Disa was amazing on all fronts, but her singing voice truly, truly blew me away. And the way the song kind of wove throughout the different shots from the different plots that they were showing, it just gave me chills, and they did a fantastic job. Now let's move on to the visuals of this show. The visuals in The Rings of Power were just the icing on the cake. I don't think there was a single bad shot in the entire show, to be quite honest. I was blown away by the attention to detail, the gorgeous color grading. Everything just felt so Middle-earth, so Tolkien, and just so beautiful. The shots in the first episode during the prologue with Valinor and the two trees were just, oh my goodness, I had tears in my eyes. And then they continued that excellence throughout the entire show. The costumes were incredibly detailed works of art and definitely felt very Tolkien to me. Again, The costumes are something that was really important to me. I'm a cosplayer, and if the costumes don't feel right, then it definitely distracts me from the storytelling. And I love, love, love the costumes in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and I was a little worried that the costumes in this show weren't going to kind of hit the mark. I was really worried they were going to go with a very generic fantasy style that you see in a lot of fantasy and sci-fi movies. Very generic, nothing special. Luckily, they did not do that, and they really honed in on each culture and each person and kind of showed that through their costumes. Some of the standouts for me was Galadriel's green dress, which she wore in Eregion, I think it was, in the finale. The standout between the dark green of her dress and the gold of her hair, and the way they pulled it all together with the gold detailing on the dress, was just fantastic. Truly a work of art, and I definitely plan on cosplaying it at some point. Another outfit that really stood out to me was Tamriel's battle outfit with her big spiky crown. Oh my goodness, so beautiful, and definitely really felt Numenorean to me. Like, it's hard to say what feels Numenorean because we've never really seen true examples of it on screen before, but when I saw her in that costume, I just felt that it was so right. I loved the Numenorean soldier outfits. They were fantastic and definitely gave me little hints of Rohan with those ponytails they were wearing in their helmets during the cavalry charge in, I think it was episode 7. Definitely give me Rohan vibes. I mean, we saw those helmets with Éomer and some of the other Rohirrim, and I'm not sure what they were going for there because it's very obvious that we've seen that before. It's an iconic piece of a main character outfit from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I'm wondering, are they hinting through the costumes to perhaps the Numenoreans and Gondor influencing style and culture in Rohan at some point later on in the series? Or is this just kind of a coincidence, or is this them just giving a nod to the original works of Peter Jackson and the rest of his team? I'm not sure. Let me know what you think down in the comments, because it was so obvious, it was so hard to miss, and I've just been stewing about it. I'm trying to figure out what they were going for there. The other costumes that I absolutely loved were Arondir and the rest of his soldier comrades. The chest plates that they wear actually have Ents on them. Those faces are Ent faces. And it was just such an interesting and different style that we haven't really seen before on elves. And I just loved it. It was fantastic. Very earthy, very Sindarin, you know, very gray elves, and it was just perfect. Now we get into the plot, what I thought of the plot. So we are dealing with 4 different plot lines here. The Southlands, Elrond and co, Galadriel and Numenor, and the Harfoots. And I liked them in that order specifically. The Southlands was a truly standout plotline to me with Arondir and Bronwyn. It was very solid. It had a very clear progression. There was no kind of middling ground where the story didn't know where it was going. The emotional beats were all hitting right. They were all paying off very well. We got to see a lot of the orcs in the Southlands, and that was very fascinating to me. Adar and all those others I really enjoyed seeing. So for me, the Southlands was definitely my favorite. My second favorite plotline is what I'm calling Elrond and Co. So it is Elrond, Disa, Durin, Celebrimbor, Gil-galad, and the rest of them. That plotline I really enjoyed, but I felt like it just wasn't developed enough. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. But I really felt like it could have been so much more. I felt like we were really missing a lot there. However, with that being said, I still absolutely loved it, and it's definitely my second favorite. My third favorite is Galadriel and Numenor, and I'm really sad that this came in third because Galadriel is our main character, Numenor is a huge part of the show, obviously, and it's not that it fell flat for me, I just have characterization concerns. The way Galadriel behaves in Numenor is not the behavior of someone who is well over 6,000 years old at this point, is the oldest elf in Middle-earth. She saw the breaking of the world, she's seen so many things, and for her to barge into a foreign court, which is not friendly to her kind, and demand things and insult them, and then wonder why they're not on her side, and then she has to be coached by Halbrand and Elendil. It's very wrong to me. That's not how she would act, in my personal opinion. Now, I love the actress. I think she did a fantastic job doing, with what she was given. She did a fantastic job. But I just did not enjoy most of Galadriel's interactions when she first arrives at Numenor. After they decide to go with Galadriel to the Southlands, after that I did not have a problem with Galadriel and Numenor, but up until that point there were so many things that I just did not feel were accurate to the character that it really just threw me off. Visually, however, Numenor was stunning. Again, the actress who plays Galadriel and the actress who plays Tarmiriel and Ar-Pharazôn and all that, they were fantastic and they did a great job with what they were given. I just hope next season is better. I will acknowledge, however, that it is clear Galadriel is on some kind of very, very difficult character arc for her. It wouldn't make sense to have her be the same person at the end of the show as she is at the beginning, and they want us to see her grow as a character, obviously. However, I really think that this could have gone about a different way, and I really don't think that making her act like a petulant, spoiled child was the best move here, to be quite honest. And my least favorite is the Harfoots. Now, I just want to be clear here, just because it's my least favorite does not mean that I hated it. I really did enjoy the Harfoots. I thought that they were interesting, I thought their storyline was fun, but it didn't feel necessary to the story. And this is nothing against the actors and actresses who did a fantastic job. They did a really good job and I really did enjoy their story. My problem is that it didn't feel necessary to the story. It felt very disjointed and disconnected from the rest of the storyline that was happening. And everything with the stranger and all of this, it just really detracted from what was happening elsewhere in Middle-earth. There was no clear connection. The differences with the other three plot lines is that they are all somehow connected. They're like a little bit of a spider web. But then the Harfoots are kind of like over here, a smaller spider web that isn't connected at all. And that was really jarring for me. And I wish either that they had given the Harfoots a smaller storyline or they had just cut them all together. And I loved the actors and actresses. I thought it was really fun. I just didn't feel like it was necessary to the story. And I also felt that it took away screen time from other storylines that really weren't developed as much. Again, Elrond and co, they could have been developed so much more. We barely saw Gil-galad or Celebrimbor. We hardly saw Eregion or Lindon. You know, there's so much more that we could have seen, that we could have been so much more invested in these characters, and I'm really hoping that in season 2 we see so much more of them, because these characters are not side characters. Gil-galad and Celebrimbor are a big deal in Middle-earth, and the fact that we saw so little of them is kind of upsetting to me because, you know, I want to see more of them, and they could have been developed a lot better. So Season 2, I'm really hoping we get more of that. Let's get into Halbrand / Sauron. So I was not of the opinion that Halbrand was going to be Sauron. I know, I was one of those people. And I was convinced that he was going to be a anti-Aragorn and eventually become a ringwraith. And I thought that would be a really fantastic story. I thought it would pair really well with the rest of the Middle-earth cinematic universe. To have a character who has the same character beats, the same character arcs as Aragorn, as the king who has returned, but fails. I thought that would be such an interesting storyline. We did not get that storyline. And that is okay, because I was won over as Halbrand being Sauron. I thought it was the perfect twist, and now that I have rewatched the entire season, I definitely am seeing all the little hints that they put in there that he was Sauron. They did a really good job of that. I just was willfully blind. Charlie Vickers, the actor, is the perfect Sauron. And I know a lot of people have been going, oh, I wish he was Anatar, I wish we got to see all that, and I wish that too. I think what they did here with Sauron is incredibly interesting, because Anatar is very big and very showy, and we would have known right away that he was Sauron. What I think is interesting about having Sauron disguise himself as a human is that he's very unassuming. He's just a little nobody, you know? He's no one. He's just a plain old bedraggled human when Galadriel meets him. He's not, you know, this shining elf lord. And I think that was really interesting and a really interesting way to go with the character. I also think that they didn't have the rights to Anatar, if I believe correctly. But I am hoping that we get to see Sauron's Anatar form in season 2. They have hinted at something like that. They said that with Sauron operating now more in the open in season 2, we'll get to see a lot more of his kind of shenanigans. And him being Anatar would still work, assuming that Galadriel and Elrond don't recognize him. But also, if you go to the lore, Galadriel and Elrond did not trust Anatar even when the other elves did. So even if Galadriel and Elrond know that Sauron is Anatar, they might just not say anything, because Galadriel probably doesn't want to fess up that she was the one who brought Sauron back. She probably doesn't want to be the one to tell Gil-galad and Celebrimbor that. So it's possible that there's going to be some kind of tension there where Sauron comes back in his Anatar form, and she knows that it's him, but she can't say anything, and they have this kind of silent battle going on. I think that would be really interesting for season 2. The scene where he reveals himself as Sauron gave me chills. Again, the actor did such an amazing job of going from Halbrand, happy human, literally the embodiment of a puppy dog that's following Galadriel around, to Sauron, millennia-old being who has seen everything happen in the world, who's made mistakes, who's done evil things. And just that switch where you literally just see it in the actor just change. Brilliant. I literally had chills. I cried. I'm gonna be completely honest. Fantastic acting. I mean, that scene, I had to specifically mention it because it just blew me away. It's gorgeous. Another interesting thing is that Sauron was able to get into Galadriel's head, and I just wanted to mention this because in Lord of the Rings, it is stated that she can perceive Sauron's mind, but he cannot perceive hers, which means that at some point between season 1 and the Fellowship of the Ring, something happens and Galadriel is able to become that much stronger than Sauron in terms of mental strength. And I really hope that they show that and that they play into that, because that would be so cool. So overall, what are my thoughts? I genuinely think that this show was really good and a fantastic effort for a first season. I am never very tough when it comes to first seasons of shows. In my personal opinion, it takes a while for a show to find its footing. I have never seen a first season of a television show that I've been like, oh yeah, that's the perfect first season. To me, they always take a little bit of time to find their footing, figure out what they're doing, and I think it's really important that we give Rings of Power that chance. That being said, apart from a couple missteps of focusing too much on one plot line versus another and some pacing issues, I think they did a really great job. Again, there were some character missteps as well, but I'm not gonna hone in too much on that, as some of those were resolved towards the end of the season. And overall, I'm really happy. I had a great time watching it. I looked forward to it every week. And I was always really excited to see what they were going to do with it next. I think that's something that they really succeeded with this season, is that they kept people coming back, especially me. I was there ready to watch it every Friday. And hopefully they can continue that with the next season. So, overall, I would give it a 7.5, as I said earlier, and I would love to know what you think of the show down in the comments below. So let me know, and I will see you next time.